Welcome to Tabletop Tactics. Lawrence here with a very special video for you today. Recently, Games Workshop reached out to me and a few other amazing channels to do a short interview with Stu Black, head of the Warhammer 40,000 studio. Obviously, we were massively excited about this here and lined up some burning questions that we thought you guys might want to get answered. So with no further ado, let's dive in and see what he had to say about the brand new edition. So here before me, I have Stu Black, head of the Warhammer 40,000 design studio. Thanks so much for coming on.
It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, look, I've got a bunch of questions for you that I know our audience would be really keen to hear some answers for. So if you're ready, I'm going to kick off with the most obvious question. Why the big reset?
Yeah, that's a great question. So really when we started looking at the new edition and what our design goals were for it, it soon became quite apparent that in order to meet those, we actually needed to make quite a big change. So in previous editions, sometimes it's possible to make them backwards compatible with previous books and rule sets. But really what we wanted to achieve with this edition meant that actually a full reset was what we needed to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I suppose if you are fundamentally changing some of the core mechanics of the system, indexing all of the factions so that they can work better with it is absolutely the right choice. We're really excited to play games as all of the armies have now been reset. So it can't get more exciting than relearning all of the armies and playing lots of new games. So on to the next question. Was there anything from previous editions of Warhammer 40,000 that you have brought into 10th edition, things which you liked before or things that worked previously which you are now using in this edition?
So kind of. I think we haven't consciously kind of looked back at previous editions and kind of cherry picked the best bits or anything. But when we're looking at a particular kind of challenge that we need to solve or a particular issue that we're trying to deal with in the game, then sometimes, you know, solutions that have worked in the past are great solutions for the future. So it wasn't really a case of kind of trying to do the greatest hits album. It was more actually what solves those particular problems, what helps us achieve those goals that we're aiming for. And then it happens to be that some of those things will be familiar to people. Some of them also never really went away. You know, we've had a kind of 2 editions of people talking about Deep Strike and Feel No Pain, kind of universal special rules that actually that they haven't really been in the game under that name for what, best part of a decade. So yeah, it felt natural to go back to some of those terms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, veteran players are still using terms like feel no pain, aren't they? So the term never really went away, did it?
Yeah, and I think the same for new players. There's a whole generations of people that have got into Warhammer and call things feel no pain without really knowing why. You know, and it's just an old term that's kind of been around in the kind of 40k community for so long now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, my next question for you is, given that all of the factions have seen the index reset that we've spoken about, what can we come to expect from new codexes in 10th edition? What will they bring additionally to what the index has laid as a foundation?
Again, great question. So part of what we've done with the indexes is obviously, as you say, rewritten all the data sheets. There's about 2,000 data sheets in 40k, something like that. So we've rewritten all of those. But also in each index, you get a detachment. And what a detachment is essentially a set of stratagems, so normally around 6. Some enhancements, so things like relics and warlord traits from previous editions, now called enhancements. And also a detachment rule that captures a bit of the flavour of a particular archetype or play style that faction has. So that's what happens in an index. And then what we'll do in the codexes over the course of the edition is expand on those detachments. So we've chosen the kind of most representative of those to go in the index, but the codex will be an opportunity for us to explore kind of different, I guess what people would think of as sub-factions in the past. And there's like a good kind of overlap between sub-factions within the background and kind of particular archetypes or styles of play. So, for example, with the Tyranids, we've shown one of the detachments in the index, but when we get to the Tyranid Codex, there'll be other archetypes that we might want to lean into. So your kind of classic monster mash kind of archetype, where you just take all the big monsters, there'd be a detachment for that. Your kind of infiltratey, kind of vanguard organisms, your lictors, your gene stealers. If you really want to lean into that way of playing, there'll be a detachment for that as well. And they'll all follow the same format. So in a codex, there'll be a spread for each one, so 2 pages. And they'll, like I say, they'll include 6 stratagems, thereabouts, 3 to 4, maybe 5 enhancements, and a detachment rule that kind of captures that flavour. And one of the things that will be different, I guess, to previous editions is a player will just access that one spread. So if you're playing a Monster Mash army, you just use that spread from your Codex. If you're going an Infiltration Swarm, use a different spread, which will help us kind of really tailor that experience, but also kind of cut down on the amount of things that you need to remember during a game.
Okay, awesome. So you're really effectively cracking open the way that people can build their armies in 10th edition, access models in their collection, no matter how big that collection is, and allow them to pick the playstyle they want, but at the same time without having so many rules or options that, yeah, as you say, they get lost in it. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think coupled with that as well is that sometimes those detachments will lean into what historically would have been a kind of sub-faction. So you might have a particular, I don't know, a craft world that's famous for its jet bikes, like Samhain. And the way we'd have approached that in the past is said, here's some Samhain rules that are for jet bike armies. And what we'll do this time is really lean into that archetype. So Wind Rider hosts, you get those in all of the different craft worlds. It's just Samhain are most famous for it. But it means, again, that players aren't locked into a particular choice because of the colour scheme that they've chosen to paint their models, or if they want to have a giant collection. So I've got, I don't know, 10,000 points of Space Marines these days. So I can field a really heavy biker army, or I can field loads of tanks, and I don't have to pretend that they're White Scars or Salamanders or something to kind of capture the feeling of that. So we really wanted to give players more kind of choice and agency, but not end up in a big kind of wide variety of things that they could get lost in.
Okay, cool. So I've got one last question for you today. Given that we've seen quite a few new rules previewed, things like objective control and battle shock and the return of universal special rules, some old rules coming back, and of course updates to those too. Despite all of those things, what are you looking forward to most as 10th edition unfolds?
Yeah, so I think a little bit of all of the above, really. I think mechanics-wise, I think the fact that army list construction is so much simpler, I think that'll be really exciting to see kind of what players do, how they kind of build lists, the kinds of things that they adopt in a way to play the game. I think the new missions, the fact that we've been able to kind of bring together the best of Tempest of War and the kind of GT mission packs and actually put both of those styles of play into one, I think will be really exciting, particularly because one player can choose that slightly more kind of Tempest feel and go for the tactical secondaries, whereas another player might choose to play with a more fixed way of playing. I think that would be really exciting to see how that pans out. And I think Battle Shock is probably the thing I'm most excited about. I think finally being able to get a set of mechanics that kind of represent not just morale and kind of courage, but combat readiness or the ability to pin enemy units, I think will make people think quite differently about how they play the game. And what's important in terms of taking objectives and those kind of things. You have more tools in your toolbox, I guess, as a player, other than just, well, kill your opponent's unit that's on the objective.
Yeah, totally. Well, look, thank you so much. You've previewed some things for 10th, which I know our audience are going to absolutely love. And I know that you've got some interviews with some other content creators too coming up, and we can't wait to see what you say over there too. So thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you on, and we look forward to 10th edition.
Grand, thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
There you have it, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed learning a little bit more about 10th edition from Stu himself. If you're keen to hear more from him, check out our pals over at Vanguard Tactics.
Lawrence, catch!
Oh, thanks, Stephen, but I won't be needing this anymore. Hey, Nick.
Thanks, Lawrence. Not sure what I'm going to do with that. Appreciate that.
Or my buddy Nick over at Play on Tabletop. Be sure to check out the links in the description below. For now, I've been Lawrence, and I'll see you in another video very soon.